Welcome to the show that explores the methods and strategies on rocking the financial side of your music business. With over 40 years combined experience, here are your hosts, Chris Webb and Dave Tampkin.
Welcome to Musician's Tip Jar, where we talk about musicians and money. Where we try to mix things up just to keep ourselves feeling fresh and exciting. This here is our host, Dave Tampkin, and I am Chris Webb. Together, we have broken more bad habits than Taylor Swift has records.
Ain't that the truth?
Today, we chat with Front Range blues musician Mike Maurer. Together, we discuss how breaking out of bad habits makes room for good stuff to come your way, more ways to multiply your earnings, and defining the vision of your future. Today's quote comes from our guest, Mike Maurer. He said, "What I really do for a living is carry music gear around and play Tetris with time."
This week's nonprofit is childrensmusicacademy.org. They're located in Castle Rock, Colorado. Their curriculum is built on research that proves music matters. Music affects virtually every aspect of development, and when young children are constantly engaged by music during the musical window, they benefit at many levels. Build spatial temporal reasoning skills critical for greater success in math and science studies. Music students outperform non-music students on achievement tests in reading and math. Music students receive more academic honors and awards than non-music students. Wish someone would have told me that when I was going to school, or at least given me more awards. Develops social and emotional skills, including the ability to relate to others and better express ideas, and less likely to have behavioral discipline problems. Again, someone should have told my teachers that. Learn more at childrensmusicacademy.org/castle-rock.co.
It really is amazing how much has changed in the education world, of how much better we understand the learning process and how much better teachers are equipped to identify stuff. I struggled so much as a young kid in the inner cities of Chicago in that school system. I struggled a lot, and it took a while to find the right teacher that could identify what I needed.
It blew my mind when teaching Castle Rock music how many parents would take away music as punishment and then say, go play video games all night.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the thing they were going to take away.
Mm-hmm. Well, our guest, Mike Maurer, is a Colorado-based musician who began playing guitar at a very early age, studying with Jock Bartley of the hit band Firefall. After his debut release, Chasing Pearl, Mike toured extensively, sharing the stage with acts such as Johnny Winter, Eric Gales, Tab Bonet, Earth, Wind and Fire, Richie Corzone, and Papa Chubby. I can't say his name without laughing. His long-awaited follow-up album is set to release here in the fall of 2024. Aside from endorsements and regional awards, Mike is an excellent and seasoned performer, teacher, and all-around fun guy. We hope you enjoy this. Let's go.
Well, Mike, since we just got through with your accolade, how about you tell us where you and Chris met? How did that friendship start?
Oh my God, man. It's a freaking good question, Chris. Well, I know that he went to high school with a guy, Patrick Megan, that I know really well. Was that how it happened, Chris?
That is the origin of it. We met it when what we used to refer to as the Blackout Strip.
The Blackout Block, yeah.
Yeah.
And Pat worked at
the jazz bar.
That hurts.
It's still a great jazz bar, and he's still there.
Dude, I play there. I do the weekends. They've been booking us at Herb's on Friday, Saturday, like two-nighters, which is fine. It's nice to play once in a while, man. But I know by night two, I'm like tired of drunk people falling over, and it's like, But I think that was it.
Mm-hmm. Played a bunch of shows together, right?
Yeah, Retro Room. Those guys now own 6 bars. Did you know that?
No.
Dude, they bought... It's such a good story because it was Retro Room, and they were about to close up, and then they made that pickle shot, and it kind of turned everything around, and then they own... 4 of them are in Lodo. 4 of their bars. So they were about to declare bankruptcy and turned it around. It's kind of a cool story.
That's amazing.
It's funny that pickle shots turn things around for me quite often.
Yeah, dude. And the thing is, it's just a freaking pickle. It's like, it's that well vodka. It costs them like $6 for a bottle of vodka. They go to Costco, empty out the vinegar or whatever the pickles are in, and then put that vodka in there. And then people, it's like, it's insane.
I love it.
We need to find the pickle shot in the music industry, right?
What is our pickle shot? Exactly.
Well, if it wasn't the pickle shot that inspired you to change things around, what would you say inspired you to pursue full-time music career?
Well, it was something you always wanted to do. And then I think I just saw the possibility of, hey, I could do this. You know what I mean? Because when I was younger, it was a party. Not that I didn't take it semi-seriously. I mean, I still was writing and producing and everything. But I think when I got kind of my things together, I was like, Mike, you could do this. This is not a pipe dream. You could see things in place where I could live comfortably. It's always going to be semi-stressful. I think that never goes away. I saw, if I took care of business, I could do it. The other part to that answer is nothing else to do. Like, I didn't have the passion that I have for anything else, and I went into the corporate world and I lived as normal as possible. And I was like, this is not for me.
I remember those nights that we'd meet up at the bar. You'd be there when I came down there.
Mm-hmm. It was like 2016, man, when I quit drinking. I lost a lot of weight. You guys remember when I was heavy, I'm sure. And then did the whole 9 to 5. I got into apartment business. So I was working for basically sales. I did that for, I think, 5-6 years. And then I'm like, it's just not for me.
Well, let's slow this down a little bit. Can you share? Are you comfortable sharing how much weight you lost?
Yeah, dude. So about 100 pounds.
And that is no easy thing to do. People might see that as harder than making it in the music industry because it takes a lot of commitment and it takes a lot of intentionality to actually achieve, especially because I think prior to that, knowing you, that was never on your radar. That was never something that, at least not that we ever talked about. It was always about, we always talked about music, opportunities, about, there was nothing about your health you were ever really bringing up. So when that occurred, we had already kind of not seen each other as often anymore. And I was really impressed with that. I thought that showed a type of drive in you that I had never seen before. Let's just talk a little bit about how you did that, because I think it's worth mentioning what triggered that and how it happened.
Well, and I think it's even connected to, the drive for music and everything. It's all intertwined. When I quit, so I was 34, didn't have a lot going on, man. I felt like in a weird way, like a burnout, like the end of my music career. And it was just not, it was like I was drinking a ton, didn't have a lot going on, just kind of like hopeless. And I was like, well, I got to change this around. So I quit drinking, and the weight loss happened more organically. It was easier to change my lifestyle when I was making that change already. If that makes sense. So for me, it was easier to add that in than like tackling one thing at a time. You always hear people say that, like, whoa, one thing at a time, and I still have bad habits like everybody else, and then I felt amazing, man. And exercise became my endorphin replacement from the booze. Yeah. And it was such a clean energy. So the exercise, but then there was the diet, and it literally, this was before the keto phase, like the keto fad or whatever, but that's basically what it was. I read books and it said that human beings evolved to eat a certain diet. And it wasn't until this last 100 years that we've fell off of that, what we're designed to eat. So basically I was like, I'm eating like we are designed to eat. There's meat, but we didn't eat meat every day. That was like a trophy catch kind of thing. So it's like, 2 to 3 times a week at most, and vegetables, and to stay away from sugar. And it just kind of I lost the weight fast.
Really?
Really quick. It was probably in 4 or 5 months, which was a lot of weight to lose really quick.
That's insane.
But your body goes into like a shock, and it ripped all the weight off, man. So that was good.
What about the idea of the letting go of the booze? That must have been a lot of mental work there. And did you feel like you had to recognize reality in a new way once you were looking at it from sober eyes?
Oh yeah. I was, man, I was like, talk about music. I was like, when I quit, I was like, I don't know. I'm going to leave music alone. And if it comes back to me, then I'll do it. I didn't know because it was so polluted with partying to me. It was synonymous. So I was like, even in the studio, I was like, when is the last time I performed completely sober? I mean, not smashed, but under the influence of something every time I performed in my 20s and early 30s. And I'm like, I was almost like afraid to perform. How am I going to do this? It's so synonymous in our culture with music.
Totally.
Especially at the lower level. It's like we are paid to keep people drinking. And it's like as people are drinking, that's why they hire a band or whatever. It's so intertwined with our career.
They ask you to get there way early to set up. And while you're setting up, the first thing they ask you is going to grab you a beer.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had, when I quit, man, and the people that, the fans or whatever, let me buy you a shot. I had a bar owner get mad at me because I declined his shot. And it's like, really? He's like, that's money to the bar. And it's like, well, it's my body, pal. You know what I mean? So it was, I couldn't believe that. So
maybe you should have just poured pickle juice in it.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll just take the pickle juice. Hold the vodka.
Yeah, hold the vodka. But I just left music alone. I'm just gonna let it be. And if I want to desire to play or not, or gig or whatever. But it was not long into my journey. It was like, oh yeah, I can't. It's too deep in my consciousness to leave alone. So I started playing. The break was nice though, to clear my head. And then I'm like, doing this corporate sales job. And I'm like, this sucks. I have another skill set I could use, which is amazing. So going on the other side, being a quote normal person, like this weekend alone, I had 6 gigs since Thursday.
Wow.
And I was just exhausted. And it's good. But every time I kind of get discouraged or something happens, I have some cancels or whatever. And I'll go to LinkedIn and just see all those little corporate people and that almost propaganda. I'm like, thank you, God, I could do what I do. Because I would not, I'm very grateful that I could have the life that I have by playing music, because it's not all roses. You guys know that.
Yep.
But I'll just go on LinkedIn and see all that. Okay, I'm good. But one thing I will say about the corporate job and the sales job, I learned how to be a salesman. And what we do is a lot of selling ourselves. We are the product that we're selling. So, and we have to represent it. So I learned that skill set and how to separate it to, talk about awkwardness and stuff. I learned to separate my attachment to myself as a product. So just cut it off. It's a product. I don't have any shame about it. This is what I'm offering. And this is how I'm selling it. So it's just like putting a different hat on. And that was that, man. So that was it. I actually used some of those sales techniques into the music world.
It's kind of like Bono's sunglasses. When he puts on the sunglasses, he's ready to perform and offer being something different, that he could be someone different than himself. Chappell Roan is blowing up like crazy, and she'll do interviews as herself, not as Chappell Roan, because that's something separate. That is meant for the stage.
Exactly. I'll put on the lesson guy hat, the performer hat, the whole different incarnations, what it takes, and completely separate that and feel totally comfortable about doing that, because it's kind of needed. And it comes across not egotistical, but like kind of confident. It's like, okay, I see the value in what I'm bringing and see what I could offer. And it's a business relationship, and I have that hat on, and then you take it off when you perform. And that's still the best part of it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know that. It's like when you're in there in your moment and it feels right, that's what it's all about. When you could forget about all the stupid stuff like the business that will never go away.
You know what's funny when you say that? It's like sometimes when people ask me like how I play 4-hour shows so much, I realize that my answer should include that I'm hiding behind the microphone because
Right.
I don't want to communicate in their world sometimes. I just like to have my own space and do what I love doing and just be
Right.
left alone doing that.
Yeah, totally, man. I'm with you too. That's where I feel at home and comfortable, and it's like in my element. I could do this. That's what I love to do.
Could you bring us through a week, like in your shoes?
Weekday mornings, like, are the kind of my time, which is great. Like now, I start teaching usually like 2 to 3, but the mornings are booking and emails and stuff like that. It's all work related. Generally, a lot of emails and scheduling and stuff. As far as scheduling the my performance schedule and the lesson stuff, which is like it's like Tetris with time. That's what I think I really do for a living. I carry music gear around and I play Tetris with time. That's it. So, but yeah, it's a lot of the admin stuff in the mornings, and then I teach till about 7:38. If there's practice, it's then, but there's some like today, man. I don't want to pick up a guitar. There's a lot of guitar playing happening this weekend, and then usually, yeah, I'm playing 3-4 times a week, and then teaching pretty much every day. I like to cook a lot, so that's when I kind of cook, and then so that kind of repeats. I do the.
I'm sorry. Did you just say doo-doo?
I do.
Don't worry, Chris
the,
edits all that out.
Basically, I'm like Jack Black, man, at Castle Rock Music. I do the band program there, which is awesome. And that's something I wanted to bring up as a topic today, too, because you guys talk about like thinking outside the box financially, right? So, and that was my thing. It's like, I can't teach more lessons. I can't do more gigs. How do I grow financially if there's only one of me, right? So there's a lot of ways to do that. And one of the things is like, I get several people. That's how I can make more money, right? To pay at one time. And that's how I do it there. So like I round up like a group of kids and teach them how to play in a band together, but I'm getting a lesson rate all at the same time, right? So I have 7 kids paying the $35 versus 1. So yeah. I do a lot of coordinating on that because that's just literally more bang for your buck. Mm-hmm. I try to do that as much as possible because that could be really profitable.
And that's an awesome service for those kids as well, because you could learn as much guitar in an hour as you want, but to relate with other kids your age and different skill levels, to come together and work together, respect each other.
It's really cool, man. There's some things that I found out with the kids being, preteens and teens. When you add that social element, all of a sudden they really care. They don't want to be the one that forgets the parts or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the one-on-one lessons are like, sometimes, mom's making me be here or whatever. They really, all of a sudden they come in and I do one-on-one with them and they're like, okay, let's go over that song. And it's like, yeah. But it's also learning, and that's a whole different skill set. You guys know that it's communicating and leading a band is different than just on your own. It's one of the biggest joys, I think, of music is that telepathic communication on stage that happens. And to be able to kind of teach it, when you're teaching, you realize you learn and you grow as a musician yourself, because you realize that you have to slow down. Like people would ask, how do you do this technique or whatever? And like, oh my God, I don't know. It just kind of happened. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
So then you identify yourself and then improve your own. And so it's really made my playing better as well. The
Yeah.
teaching later in the week and the weekends, I'll gig. Usually about half of them are solo, the other half are band stuff. The weekends are like kind of a cruel joke because you do the gigs and my latest nights are followed by my earliest days because a lot of people have availability on Saturday and Sunday morning for lessons.
Right.
So I'm like doing a late gig and then have my earliest day.
That back in the day would not have been a sustainable lifestyle because of the alcohol, right?
There is no way I could have got up and had my head together, but there's no way I could drink. I think of that a lot and keep all the stuff in my head that I need to organized with all this movement in my schedule constantly. There's no way I could do that. There's just no capacity for any kind of mind altering things. It's hard enough being completely sober, keeping it straight, you know?
Totally.
My week will change constantly.
Yeah. Part of that to me is like, it's this desire to continue growing, right? We have this need as entrepreneurs to feel like we're heading in a bigger direction all the time, right? Like it doesn't
Right.
feel good to be going down in your career ever, right?
No.
There's almost like you're trying to constantly grow and build this whatever empire of your own that you're trying to create until you decide, now I'm done, right? Like that's kind of like the hope for it. What are some of like the visions that you have kind of pushing forward with what you want to create for yourself or for your business or for your opportunities?
Yeah, man, I think you're right. You always want to progress, and there's a lot. You know, the number one thing is residual income. You guys talked about that sometimes. Whether it's merch or songs or royalties or anything, it's like, how could I make money? You know, that's a big thing. Your 40s, it's like, okay, especially like after a week like this, man. So Saturday, I played an outdoor festival in Blackhawk, put on by these casinos, and then I went down and played this duo gig, and then I was subbing for this church, and the call time was 6 a.m. And I just like, why did I agree to do this? But point being, it's like I need to, as getting older, you got to think about retirement and what does that look like, and how could I make money? And there's a lot of ways to do that, but that's the number one goal: residual income. Right? I've been looking seriously at demographics at towns and opening my own music school.
Mm-hmm.
The idea is I want to be on vacation while I'm making money.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a one way I thought of too, which still would allow me to perform and even tour while the music school is going. And I've talked with investors, so that's something that might happen relatively soon.
Do you see yourself not playing shows by like 60? I mean, like, just curious, like if you're looking that far in advance.
I don't think I think as long as I'm on the planet, I'll have the desire to play shows.
Mm-hmm.
But it's having to do it is what I want to eliminate.
Totally.
I have to do it. Right now, it's probably 40% of my income. So take that out would hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be nice to be in the point where you just take the situations you want. I'm almost there. I turn down quite a lot these days. Talking about going back earlier, we're in the hat. We are in control of the supply and demand, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
We are in control of the value of the product we're giving. And if we give it out cheap, our value goes down.
Yeah.
So we were in control of our own value. And you were influential of that to me, Chris. Because I remember when you there was a time when you're like, okay, well, let's be really adult about this.
Yeah.
And then you raise your value. So I don't see myself ever kind of stopping, but I see myself getting more and more picky with my performance schedule.
Yeah. It's like you're trying to build the lifestyle, you know, and you use what you say yes and no to build how you want to spend your days, right?
Yeah. And controlling the value of the product. Like if we're playing, you know, all these $100 gigs at coffee shops or whatever, that's one way we show the value. But if it's like You don't do it. And if you're smart about it, you create more of a demand. But that's how we control this intangible product that we're offering.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. It's a service. You know how it is. It's like having 5 part-time jobs, right?
Yeah.
It's like diversifying the income stream as much as possible. Having that keep coming in.
I didn't realize you guys met back in Illinois.
We didn't meet in Illinois. I guess that got a little confusing about that. We just shared a friend that we were introduced by hanging out with a friend from my childhood in St. Charles, Illinois.
Okay.
But that was still here in Denver.
I was introduced to Pat after the phone call.
Oh.
Yeah. And he said, I'll check out your music. And if it's a fit, give you a call. I go, well, if it's not a fit, give me a call anyway. We can be friends. I didn't hear back from him. I just want to put the pressure on him,
Yeah, that was a different life, I feel like. It's funny how you kind of look back at different phases of your life and you can kind of group them into like that was its own life within your life. And certainly like your youth was one of those, but like my early 30s in that downtown Denver scene was its own little life, and it was fun to have my old buddy Pat in that world with me. And I never took a single pickle shot, I will say.
We're going to have to change that.
But that time, it's interesting to think back to that time and talking to Mike about this, is that we just weren't ready to be full-time musicians. And that was our own path. I mean, I work with students all the time that are far more prepared in their 20s than I was in my 30s to really give this a full go. And that's just how it works for different people, right? I mean, there are some people like Taylor Swift that was ready when she was 14, So I don't know how that works or if there's really a right or wrong. I mean, plenty of people got their start later in life, didn't get their break at least until later in life. That doesn't mean they weren't working at it. Like we were working at music. I was recording tons of albums. I was writing tons of songs, playing tons of shows. But there was still that element that I just wasn't quite ready to be mentally that full-time musician, business-minded. And I think that I escaped that sometimes with the indulgences of hanging out at the bars for no good reason.
Well, you'll never have to blame a pickle shot, that's for sure.
No.
So that's out in the open.
And I think that's what came with that, is that you eventually start learning to believe in yourself. Just like Mike talked about, that there's like a time where all of a sudden it clicks for everybody. And this might be a different phase of everyone's lives, right? You might have 3 more learning to believe in yourself moments coming in your lifespan, right? It changes depending on what's next needed for you to do. And so, that's kind of a nice thing to think, that it's like no matter where you are or how old you are, there could be something else very exciting coming that you aren't really ready for, you haven't been ready for, but you're about to be.
And to be clear enough to believe in yourself. Because as he was saying, he had to make some lifestyle choices. So what he believed in himself and one viewpoint drastically changed when he had a clearer vision of what he wanted.
We can look back at that and we can feel guilty, right? But we have no use of that, right? We always try to remind people that there's no shame, no blame in trying the corporate gig for a while or trying the day job or trying the career path that, you've been encouraged to take that safe route. If you can't let go of what this calling is, whatever that is, we don't know what it is, but we all know what it is when it talks about it as a feeling. If that feeling doesn't go away and you felt like you've been running from it, you don't have to regret that time, because as Mike said, you learn skills in those phases that might be preparing you in some unseen way that you will then use to help catapult yourself a little faster when you're finally ready.
It's what molded you into who you are today.
And part of that is letting go of the bad habits.
Not always easy to do.
And we're always letting go of bad habits. There's always new bad habits.
Yeah.
People finally gave up smoking cigarettes and now they all vape.
Yeah. Or chew on packets of nicotine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Non-alcoholic beer is starting to taste pretty good.
I mean, put a lime in a Heineken Zero, Chris. I'm telling you. It's awesome.
So there's ways you can work around these things, and it's not to belittle anybody's challenges with bad habits, but it's important to know that we all struggle to pass that finish line of when you can finally let go of the bad habit. There is a time, like there were times where I was like, I'm just ready. Like, and there, it was almost like that came before I was actually ready to actually let some of that go. But I knew it in my heart that I was ready, and I was desiring so much more than it was allowing me if I kept that habit.
You mentioned Taylor Swift starting this at 15. She was in a room in Nashville with other writers every day writing another song. Where in the Midwest, where we weren't doing that. We were maybe playing at a bar where, young enough to get in. I know I was, getting in with a fake ID, and then you have a beer, and then you associate having a good time with playing music with a beer. And then before you know it, you're 22, 23, you're still having too much of a good time with a beer. It's just your environment that maybe you're brought up into and can't see clear enough at the time that this isn't the healthiest way to live.
Mm-hmm. And that's the danger, is when music becomes synonymous with that activity, it's really hard to separate them back out when you're trying to make that change and let go of the bad habit. We know so many people, and myself included, that really was the hardest struggle about getting back into music. And I liked Mike's approach of just saying, like, you know what, no pressure, music world. I'll be here if you need me. And that approach is a very healthy way, I think, to allow it back in, because it comes when it's ready, and you can accept it maybe as a new thing, right? And with new, fresh eyes and a new, fresh soul towards it all.
He was talking about having different tools after leaving the corporate world. You're able to build that new vision of what you want out of a career, looking at how you tried it the first time. Now you had a new set of rules, working with different people, different personalities, different attitudes on how to run a business. And he got to take that all back to his band and say, this is how I want my future. I mean, no one goes to a corporate job that I know of really and is successful, having a few drinks before they get up or they're meeting. It is not that party atmosphere. So he had new breath to take on a new career that he had been doing for years, but just doing it in a different way.
Yeah, and he keeps his schedule busy. And I think that's what we both try to always do too. It's not that you're trying to overwhelm yourself. It's just that you enjoy this challenge of being busy and using your skill sets, as he mentioned too. I feel the same way. It's like I enjoy using all these skill sets, all these things that you've gone through, jobs that, like we said, don't have anything to do with music at the moment, have come back and allowed you to become better at doing these things that do involve your skill sets in music, and wearing the different hats and trying to balance that whole thing out is actually part of the fun. It's part of the challenge. It's part of the fun. In the end, you really wouldn't want it any other way. We've had other guests say that sometimes when they look at the chaos from an outside perspective, they wouldn't want it any other way, right? And that is how I feel all the time.
The work is play. We're lucky to be able to do that. Otherwise, we're just getting into another grind if you can't view it that way.
And that leads towards this question of, what is your future vision? And we talked a little bit about that with Mike, and his kind of one of his, I think, points to highlight was that he wants to be able to choose based on how he feels, what he accepts with opportunities. And I think that's a really great way to approach it, is that you don't have to work if you don't want the gig, right? You don't have to take it just because it's worth a lot of money. It can be because you want to take it, and it's not about the money.
And then his reference to Tetris with time, he's trying to take like-minded projects and put them together. So he's not overworking, not going from one place all the way over this place to all the way up the mountain, back to the mountain, to teaching. He's making everything he does fit within this puzzle that he has set up for himself.
Building that Tetris puzzle around his vision. That's the best. It does become clearer when you step back. And that's why we always encourage everyone to take that moment to look at what you want, step back at what you're, from all these things that you're in the trenches all the time doing, and make sure that all of these paths are leading you towards that vision that you have for your future. If you don't have that vision of the future, it's most likely, what is the quote? That if you aim for nothing, you'll end up somewhere else, or
shooting your friend in the knee. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. Zig Ziglar.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Alan M. Hill, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. I believe she stole that from Zig Ziglar. I like her style. Michelangelo, the greater danger for most of us isn't that our aim is too high and miss it, but that it is too low and we reach it and hit our friend in the knee. I mean, Michelangelo knew what he was talking about.
He's violent.
Yeah.
We hope that you can build your goals and your actions around your future vision. And these systems take time, and these systems should be creating income streams. The goal here with this podcast and with our conversations is that all of these efforts are allowing you to create an income stream from all these different avenues that you have strength in, that you have skill sets in, and you can create more income streams because wealthy people, every wealthy person I know has multiple income streams. It is always the case, and you should too. So our action step this week is to simplify a bad habit that you'd like to break to a short sentence. It could be, quit smoking, Mike Maurer. Something like that. Something that you feel is in the way of you making progress in your goals for your music, like stronger vocals. See if by putting a spotlight on it as simply being a roadblock and nothing more, and see if that helps you to roll that roadblock out of the way. Keep your eyes on where you're headed. That's what matters most.
When I saw him smoking, I thought he was rolling something else at first.
We know your time is valuable. We appreciate you spending this time with us. It's our hope that you feel that sense of community here at Musicians Tip Jar and that you'll help spread the word to make us all stronger. If you'd like to get a hold of us or Mike Maurer, what's the best way to do that?
You can reach Mike Maurer at MikeMaurermusic.com. MikeMaurer music.com. Send us an email, musicianstipjar@gmail. Website, musicianstipjar.com, where you can check out all the resources and discounts we have collected just for you, and check out all our episodes now on our YouTube channel. If you find this information useful, and please rate, subscribe on the podcast, and like I said earlier, on YouTube, so we can keep you up on the finance side of your music business.
As always, thank you for joining us, and remember there is already enough for everyone, and yours is waiting around the roadblock. Until next time, on behalf of Dave Tamkin and myself, Chris Webb, stay happy, wealthy, and healthy. By making better habits, you will break the bad ones. This is Musicians Tip Jar.
Oh Lord, I could use somebody. I could use somebody. I could use somebody.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, business, or financial professional for individualized advice. Individual results are not guaranteed, and all discussed strategies have the potential for profit and loss. The hosts are operating on behalf of Musicians Tip Jar LLC exclusively.
Could use some help.